Okay. All right. Well, welcome everybody. Today is our second meeting of the new executive director and CEO group for this year. This is part of a 6-part series where we're bringing in some special guest hosts to tell us about managing or directing a community action agency from their perspective, lend a little experience. Today we've got Jeff Garner with us, who is the executive director of the King's Community Action Organization down in Hanford. You're located down in Hanford, right?
Yep, that's correct. Yep.
Right. And Jeff also serves on Cal Kappa's board of directors, and we're really happy that he's here today to provide his perspective on things to know, or what he wish he knew when he started as an executive director in community action. So Jeff, without any further ado, take it away.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Lawrence. And good morning, everyone, again. And see some familiar faces, some faces that I haven't met. So it definitely is good to meet you in this virtual world. And I hope that our paths will cross at one point, whether it's a conference or some meeting that we'll both be at. And definitely happy to be part of today's presentation. I know I was sharing with Lawrence right before everyone came on. As you're doing the presentation or you're preparing for it, it starts to remind you and kind of kick you into gear, like, well, yeah, I got to start doing more of this that I'm going to be talking about. So it definitely was a good learning moment for me, and I do hope that it's a good learning moment for you as well. So I was going to do a little bit of introduction on myself, but I first wanted to hear from everyone and just get a sense of kind of, well, obviously your name, the agency that you are serving, and how long have you been in the position that you are in. And that definitely will be helpful to know as we do this presentation. Maybe there's some things that I can tailor to be more specific to the audience here. And I think probably the best way of doing it is just, picking someone, and then you can pick someone else in the group, and then just keep handing it off until everyone gets through here. So if you can, hopefully you can see my screen, but looking again for name, agency, and how long have you been in the position that you have been in. So we'll start with Tim. Tim was the first one on the call, so we'll start with him.
All right, Tim Hawkins. I'm with the Community Action Agency of Butte County, and I have been in this position for 14 months now. Oh, and I got to pick somebody else. How about Susie? I used to work with Susie.
Hey, Tim. So Tim actually hired me about 9 years ago when he was at Ventura. So I've been with the Community Action Ventura County for 9 years. Just wrapped up my 3rd year as executive director. So.
Do you want to hand it off, Susie, to someone?
Sorry. I'll hand it over to Kelly.
Thanks. Hello, I'm Kelly Barslew. I'm with Enyo Mono Advocates for Community Action, also known as AMACA. We're over in the Eastern Sierras of California, so where all that snow has been pounding us. And I have been in my position for coming up 6 months now. I've been with the agency for 3 years. And I'm going to hand it over to Michelle.
Thank you. My name is Michelle Silva. I work at Proteus Incorporated in Visalia, California. I've worked at Proteus for 27 years, but I've been the newly appointed CEO for about 5 months now. I will pass it to Johnny.
Michelle, hi everybody. My name is Johnny Nolan. I am at CAP Sonoma. I've been in my position for 6 months, but I was on the board of the agency for 5 years before moving on to staff, and for those years as president. So I'm getting sort of like a backwards introduction to this leadership role. And I'll pass it to Sarah.
Hi guys, I'm Sarah. I am the new administrative coordinator at Cal Kappa, and I've been here 3 weeks. So yeah. Is that everybody?
I haven't gone yet.
I'm sorry.
I'm gonna go.
That's
Yeah,
Tashira.
I think I'm the
Tashira,
last
yeah, I'm
person.
sorry.
Yeah, that's okay. I'm Tashira Taylor, and I am with Foothill Unity Center. We are the community action agency of the Foothills here in Southern California, so in the San Gabriel Valley. And I have been with the organization for almost 13 years, but I've been in this current position 1 year and 7 months. Yes. So thank you.
I think that is everyone now. If we miss anyone, please jump in, but I think that was everyone. So definitely, as I expected, I mean, all different kind of ranges, and I don't think there's any type of set definition of what qualifies as a new executive director or a new, how long are you in your position until you're not new anymore? I still feel like I'm new. I've been with our agency, King's Community Action Organization, since 2006. Actually, April 24th was when I was hired. And then I became the executive director about 5 years later in 2011. And so I've been in the role for almost 12 years now. And it really has to be kind of that, saying that out loud to kind of let that sink in, because it just doesn't feel like it's been that long. And I do feel like for all of us, based on the journey that you took to be in the position that you're in now, really helps to set the course for what that first wave, that first season, as in your new role, what that looks like. And if you're coming outside, and moving into the agency, then obviously your perspective is going to be a lot different. If you were promoted from within, then obviously that gives you a different perspective. So I do feel like there's strengths to both, and I think you just got to play off of those strengths. For myself, I was hired in the role initially of the community outreach and marketing specialist. And prior to that, I was doing more direct services, running an operation in Fresno, a program in Fresno. And so I was more put into the role of doing external communication and connecting our agency to community stakeholders. And so I had kind of this external focus when it came to the work that I was doing. And then throughout that time, was promoted within that department, but still stayed in that lane of community outreach and marketing and grant writing, fund development. So worked a lot with the community and building up individuals and agencies and our partners' perception of our agency. That was my focus. So then in 2010, our executive director had left. And so there was this void where we had an interim executive director who was on our board at one time, and then he came in to serve as an interim executive director for I think close to 6 months. And of course, anytime you have change at the top, there just becomes a lot of uncertainty, and folks just trying to figure out, where their position is going to be. And so it did create, this kind of instability across the agency, not only internally, but externally, because then, it starts to become, well, what's next for our agency? And so, knowing that, we had a lot of folks internally, externally that had applied for the position, and I was one of them. And so then I was hired at the middle of 2011, and then there was this transition period between myself and the interim executive director where he kind of faded off, and then I gradually stepped in to where 3-4 months later, I was there alone and off to the races. And so, I think that experience with our agency really was important to try to fully understand where we were and then trying to get to a point where we were going. And so I know all of you have a different experience and a different journey, again, that brought you to the position you're at now. But I definitely feel like don't lose sight of that journey and really use it as a strength to build up what your next game plan is for your agency, and leverage that. And I think having that type of knowledge and using that knowledge is extremely valuable. So in terms of our agency, I know for me, like you go to a conference or you're having a meeting and you have someone from a different agency talking about, either the things that are going really well with their agency or the challenges they're having, you start to say, okay, yeah, maybe that connects to us. But then you kind of want to hear like, well, what's the makeup of your agency? So then I can feel like I'm comparing apples to apples. And then you sit there and go, oh, well, we're really a lot different. So maybe we're not so much in the same boat. I mean, we can still learn from each other, but let's kind of figure out where, the fundamentals of your agency and then how that relates to my agency. And so I know my neighbor to the north, Fresno EOC, they are a very large agency. And so anytime I'm having a discussion with them, in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, yeah, we're just kind of in two different worlds, just the scope and magnitude of their resources. But it is still something I feel like through those conversations that I can learn from, and knowing that, there are elements that do connect us, and I need to be, thinking about those bridges and thinking about how we can do things maybe just like them, or maybe we do things different than them, but understanding what makes them who they are. So for us, our background goes back to probably similar to what many of you have, and that's in 1965. We were established. So we received a grant in April of 1965 for $13,794 from the federal government to start this new community action agency. And so that's how we got our start. And then we became a private nonprofit organization. And we've been serving the communities of Kings County ever since. So a lot of times I feel like all roads lead to Kings County. Many folks will disagree with me, but Kings County is kind of there in the sort of in the middle of California. I highlighted there, you see the map of California. We're in that red area. So to the north of us, as I mentioned, we got Fresno County. To the east of us, we have Tulare County. And then to the south of us, we have Kern County, which I know you had Jeremy Tobias, the CEO of Community Action of Kern County, presented last time. And then we have Monterey County and San Luis Obispo County. So we're kind of wrapped around a lot of different counties. But we're there. We do have a team of 260 team members. And of course, if we had all of our positions filled, which I'm sure we're all going through this struggle right now, we'd probably be close to 270, 275. So hiring is a struggle here in Kings County as well. We do have a board of directors of 15, and we serve right now, our count is about 21,000 unduplicated individuals, which makes up about 15% of our population in our county. So being a county this size, only 152,000 individuals, there aren't a lot of nonprofit organizations. And so we do have our hands in a lot of different programs and projects here in our county. And then our annual budget right now sits at $41 million. So that's, again, the fundamentals of our agency. And so hopefully that helps to put things in perspective as I'm going through this moment here. or this presentation that you're saying, yes, okay, I can understand how this connects to my agency. So what I wanted to focus on as part of our presentation today is building on the idea that your team is your cornerstone. And now obviously that feels like, well, of course, and it is something that should be a no-brainer, but it is something that I feel has to be very intentional. It has to be something that is part of your strategy in leading your agency, that you nurture that, you guard it, you're very protective of it, because it's one of those things that you don't want to take for granted. And if anything, it accelerates your achievement as for your agency. Now, I would say on my end, I know the title of the series is, what I wish I knew. And it wasn't like that I didn't value that, or that wasn't a focus of mine when I started in the role of executive director. If anything, it was something that just continues to be confirmed how valuable and important that is. And so again, going back to the journey that got me here to the position I'm in, before, my focus was kind of on the external population, on making sure that the folks outside of our walls thought very highly of us, thought that they wanted to work with us and invest in us. And then becoming the executive director, that focus had to shift a little bit to where, yes, I still had to worry about what was happening on the outside of our agency and the perception the community had. But I also needed to focus very strongly on our internal team, and especially in the wake of having that transition period of one executive director leaving and having this gap of time where we didn't have someone. Our team needed that investment and needed that focus to be on them, to build them up to where they felt that they could then help move our agency forward. So if anything, it's more of a confirmation and not something that was missing. So I do feel like when we do these things, it's not some type of a mission of guilt, like, yes, I wasn't doing this. It was really to say, yes, I want to double down on that. That's a very valuable lesson that needs to continue to be practiced. I also want to share kind of, being in a new position, we're always worried, right, that, whatever the steps that we are taking, are we going in the right direction? Is this, good for our community, good for our agency? There's always that voice that's kind of either challenging you or motivating you or questioning your decisions. And that's okay. That's okay to have those things. I do feel it's important to note that your answers are right, and they are in the right, going in the right direction. So, try to build up that confidence to where, things will find a way to work out. I remember there was one executive director that I sat down with. I would say I was still in that new period, probably 2-3 years in to being an executive director. And she had a very good way of saying things and making you feel like, you got to keep moving forward and doing the best that you can. And she had talked about that, of course, when you go to workshops or conferences, you're going to hear everyone's positive stories. You're going to hear how, what they're doing is the best, and everything is going smoothly in their agency. And of course, you start to kind of think like, oh gosh, yeah, I mean, these are top-notch agencies, and we're really far behind, and we need to work our way up. But she gave me a good reminder and said, you got to realize that some people will ride around on their white horses thinking that everything is good in their land, when really it's not. And they're just trying to do their very best to stay afloat and keep things going. So she says, don't get so caught up in worrying about, how you measure up to others. Just take care of your own business and keep moving forward. So that has always stuck with me. to where it's that motivation to say, yes, we got to keep worrying about what's within our house, and then everything else will take care of itself. So in terms of focusing on your team and the cornerstone that team will be for your agency, a couple of things to keep in mind is, first is you do want to build a team environment. You really want that to be a focus and not just something that is spoken but not acted on. So I know when I moved into the role of executive director, the first thing that I did was, assess the current landscape. Now, being internally promoted, that was a little bit easier, but I still had to touch every program and got connected with every department director from a kind of an intimate level of sensitive information, things like that. So it's really being in that part where you're doing maybe more listening than talking, and just trying to gather all that information that you can. And I think it's very important to listen to your internal voices, listen to folks who are willing to share what their experience has been and what they think, where we should be going in the future. Listen to those voices and encourage folks to come forward with ideas and ways that can enhance your agency. Build purposeful teamwork. So focus on teamwork activities to where things are done with a purpose to make your team feel stronger, feel together, feel like they can trust each other. So definitely focus on that. And then we're also going to be talking about looking from within first, meaning like, when we're talking about promotions, it's sometimes good to look first what you have in-house. And then encourage decision-making. That will be another topic that we'll go over. And then lastly, celebrating, finding ways to celebrate our team. There's no victory too small or too big that shouldn't be celebrated. So I feel those are all components, all pieces of the recipe that gives you that strong team environment. So going back to the first piece of that, assessing the current landscape. So as I mentioned, I know when I started, I embarked out on a listening tour, not necessarily from the standpoint of like, I announced it as like, oh, I'm going to go out and listen to everyone, but I really just did it in a way where went around and visited all the locations that we have around our county and talked to as many people as possible that are connected to the daily operations of our agency, and just try to take everything in and understand where they're at, where they see their program going, where they see their department going. So that was very helpful. But also in that period of transition, don't dwell on the past or don't allow, I guess, team members to dwell on the past. I do feel like it's therapeutic for folks to share maybe situations that they were involved in that weren't right for them, that didn't go their way. But you really want to say, I hear you, I can empathize with you, but let's talk about how we can go forward, with that information. What can we do? So always thinking about not kind of prosecuting the past of like, well, let's try to make that right. Well, let's focus on what we can do going forward, because that is in your control. Is something that can be done moving forward and not going backwards. So a couple of examples that we did at our agency was within a year of becoming the executive director, we did an agency-wide survey. I did get some warnings from folks, other community leaders, other executive directors, like that could always be kind of dangerous, because then you're opening up, feedback that people will be sharing. We did our survey anonymously to where, now you have to address those things or you have to worry about those things. But I felt like in being in that new position, that was the right time to do that. And so we did an agency-wide survey. It gave us a good perspective, and we were able to tackle some of those items that were brought up in that survey. We also launched in 2012. We began a strategic planning process. We hadn't done a strategic plan in many years at the agency, one that was really detailed. And so we did launch that in 2012, just a year after I was hired. And we invited a lot of different team members to be part of that, frontline team members, supervisors, managers, because we wanted them to be incorporated into the future of where we were heading as an agency. And so that were a few examples of what we did when I first came into this role. So then we also, as I mentioned earlier, it's important to listen to your internal voices and use the historical knowledge that many of your team members have. Use the knowledge that team members have when it comes to the specific operations of programs and services and funders and stakeholders. That's all important information that, as long as you give them the chance to share, then take all that information in. And so I do feel like that's a valuable tool as well. So also look to provide ongoing channels and encourage open dialogue. So, not kind of this one and done, well, let me hear from you and then that will be it. But try to find those ways, whether formally or informally, where team members feel like they can reach out to you and have that level of communication to where they're just sharing information with you about how the agency's doing, their ideas for moving the agency forward. All that information is good. Some of it, you'll kind of say, okay, that's good. It's good to know where this person's coming from. Maybe nothing to act on, but I think having more information is better. I also think it's good to be transparent about where your input or how you're getting your input and where you're receiving it from. And so, I always think about, when folks come to me with an idea or maybe even a concern, I always try to say, even today, like, well, let's try to bring in the other person and kind of hash this out together instead of kind of shuttling the communication back and forth. Let me talk to this person and let me go talk to this person, bringing everyone in together. And then if you do have an idea to share, or you've heard an idea from someone, definitely share it with someone like, hey, I heard from so-and-so about this idea, and I think it'd be really good to incorporate this. What do you think? And so that way folks are understanding that you are braiding together various pieces of information from different folks. And I think that helps to make people understand kind of your method of reaching that type of decision. I also feel like, and I probably didn't do the greatest at this when I first started, because you're kind of locked into thinking, well, now I'm the executive director, I must know everything or give an answer to everyone, or if someone asks me a question, I got to be ready for it with an answer. And I've learned, and I still need to do a better job at this, is you don't have to provide an answer all the time. And so if someone is asking for an idea or asking for feedback on an idea or a concern, you don't have to give an answer right away. You can say, you know what, let me think about this and let me get back to you. And then it gives you a chance to retreat, think about it, maybe gather input from others, and then get back to them with an answer. But there's always that temptation. I don't know if it's for you, but definitely for me, of like, well, I'm in this position, I got to give an answer right away. You don't, give it time. I've used a couple of times, I've told folks, well, if you need an answer right away, I'll just say no right now in terms of if they wanted to change something up. But if you give me some time to think about it, let me kind of hash it out, and then maybe there'll be a different response there. So try to avoid that temptation, especially in your new role, where you shouldn't feel like you have to have all the answers. You'll work to get the answers, but you might not have it there on the spot. And then, so some examples that we did internally, we did establish an employee advisory committee. The committees meet once a month. We set up like procedures, bylaws on how the committee will conduct themselves. All departments are represented. We try to have frontline team members or supervisors be part of that. We have had in the past managers, but we really try to have frontline team members be part of that committee. And the focus is to give, and I sit in on those meetings, is to give me feedback. What is happening? What's happening in your world? What are some ideas that can enhance the entire agency, maybe not just your program or your site? And so it's been good. I mean, we've had some really good feedback. It's been now 10 years, 11 years that we've done this committee, and it's been good. And team members feel like they have ownership in making decisions on. When we have personnel policies, oftentimes we'll bring them to the employee advisory committee to let them review it, give us feedback. So it's creating those channels where you are allowing that feedback to be there, and folks have that direct access to you. Also, we're a big fan here at our agency of these short surveys. Microsoft has the Forms app that's really great, that if there's something that needs to get sent out, just send it out in a quick survey. Say, team members, what do you think about this? And if it's something that's kind of, doesn't have a deep impact in transforming your agency, send it out in a quick survey, let people chime in what they think, and then move forward. So I feel that's a good way of letting folks share their input, feeling like they have some value when it comes to the decisions at the agency. One example here that I can think of is a few years ago, we purchased a new early childhood education center. We provide Head Start and child development services. And we were struggling as a management team to think of what name should we give this new building. So we did narrow down some names, and we said, well, let's send it out and let the staff vote on it. And we said, we can live whatever choices we come up with in the survey, whatever one is most selected, we can live with that. And it was great. And so we ended up picking the one that got the most votes. So that's an example there. Definitely visiting service locations and trying to find a way not to anchor yourself down to the daily grind, right? We got 500 emails a day and 100 phone calls that come in. But if you can find a way to get out, look at the locations, that's always also a helpful piece to do. And I do feel you have to be deliberate. You have to put it on your calendar. You have to say, I'm going to go do this. And it's just part of my ongoing routine is being out and visiting the sites. And then what I've started to do more recently, but I did this when I first started as the ED, is just kind of the reverse of the undercover boss, going out and shadowing a program, shadowing a group of team members, and just understanding what they go through and how they conduct themselves and the job that they do. And it just gives a way for them to start to share out what they experience. And then they start to throw out ideas. Again, you want them to talk about what can we do to move this program forward? How can we better serve our clients? And then let them throw those ideas out and then say, what, some of those are really good ideas and we should try to act on them. And then obviously it's up to you then to move those things forward. The next kind of layer here is again, the purposeful teamwork is being deliberate in building that environment of teamwork and having folks understand that it's all about the greater good, not about the individual star, that we're all stars there in the universe. So I do feel like with that investment in teamwork, it does produce more trust, and where folks build equity with each other, it builds equity with you, it builds equity within your agency, where if things don't go perfect all the time or as planned, there's always then that understanding that says, yes, we understand, and we'll move forward. And so I do feel like that's definitely a good byproduct of teamwork, is you start to have that trust with your team, and they start to have trust in you in the decisions that you're making. Definitely encourage internal collaborations. Sometimes you have to do it kind of more directly, where you're getting certain programs or departments together to talk. But sometimes things happen organically, but you want to celebrate that. You want to recognize it when it does. But that definitely helps with the teamwork. Focus on strengths. I know some agencies have gone through like the Strength Finder tool, and that's definitely a good tool that I would recommend. But look at the strengths of your team and focus on those and try to find ways to advance those strengths and piece together your team based on strengths and not things that you're missing, but on what you have, and keep those things going. So examples that we've done here at our agency, and again, these examples are things that, again, you have to realize what fits within your puzzle. And if these pieces are like, no, they just don't fit, that's good. But look at things that will fit and come up with a game plan to try to take on a couple of those, hopefully in this coming year. But what we do at our agency, we've been doing for several years now. I didn't do it right away as a new executive director, but I did it maybe 3 or 4 years into my tenure. But we started doing these senior staff leadership summits. So our senior staff is our department directors, our administrative directors, HR, fiscal, and we get together once a year. We actually go off-site. The idea is that we can try to disconnect ourselves from kind of that daily grind, knowing that, we're somewhere in the building, someone's going to find us. So we do go a little bit outside of our county. We do about 2.5 days of leadership training where we, go over just materials regarding leadership. We talk about teamwork. We talk about our future goals, but it allows that cohort, that team, you kind of build a team within a team to build that trust, that unity, that understanding. And of course, as we see, when you go out and whether you're grabbing a bite to eat or you're waiting in line for something, you start to talk about things, maybe sometimes it doesn't even relate to work. And then you start to know that person kind of in a different way. And so I do feel like that starts to build more of that unity and that trust. So when those tough times do come, then you definitely know who your team members are and what they might be experiencing or what they're going through. Other things we've done, we've done books that we've read together. This is again kind of through senior staff. One book that we read was How Full Is Your Bucket? So I put the authors there. But from that, again, is about being purposeful in building our teams. We actually created this thing called Bucket Buddies. Even when I say it, with my kids, they're like, "Gosh, Dad, that's so lame." But we it works for us to where at our senior staff level, you kind of have this one person that's your bucket buddy, and it's just we do it kind of tongue in cheek, but it's a way that you kind of look out for that one person. And you find ways to support them and help them. And so that's been really good. But again, it's that purposeful act of saying, yeah, we're going to do this. And if it fits, then it will continue on its own. If it doesn't, then yes, it will die off and we'll do something else. But you got to try those things. You got to see what works, what doesn't work. We also do senior staff meetings twice a month, where we get together for about 5-6 hours. It is a long meeting, but we do try to cover things that everyone is involved in, and it gives us a chance to be together as a team. We also do things agency-wide. So again, I was hired late 2011 in this role. The World Cup was coming up, so this was in 2014. We did this agency-wide World Cup celebration where we broke off into teams, and every team had like 2 countries that they represented. And we did these different games throughout the World Cup, who can cook the best food from their country. And it's just those things that at the time I was like, I don't know if this is really going to work. We've never done anything like this. But team members loved it. And then when the next World Cup came around, people were asking about it. So we have continued it, and it's been really fun. So it's just finding those activities and give it a try. If it doesn't work, then so be it. Try something new. And then we also try to find ways, I know on my end, to just grab a cup of coffee with a lot of times, like with our department directors, senior staff, taking lunch breaks, inviting various team members to lunches, just giving those times to sit down and do more listening than talking. And I think over time, you start to build that teamwork, start to build that trust. So those are just examples that has worked on our end and I feel could work on your end. And then the next pillar here is so looking from within first. So definitely try to find ways to invest in your team members so they can grow professionally. Give them training opportunities. Let them identify training opportunities that work for them. But give them those opportunities. Also, by looking from within first, so when you're looking at filling a position, really try to set it, giving your internal team an opportunity to get those positions first. And I think what that does, it starts to have team members realize that, you know what, there are opportunities for me to grow here at this agency. There are opportunities for me to kind of stick it out and maybe go through some of those maybe rough patches, knowing that I will have opportunities to continue to grow here at the agency. And a lot of times, you know, it does become a little bit touchy when you have, 4 or 5 internal candidates for a position and you can only choose one, or sometimes you don't choose any internal candidates. And we do have those moments. It does become, now you have to go around and kind of tell folks maybe why they weren't chosen. But to me, it's good because now you're understanding that this team member does have aspirations to move to this department or wants to move into a management role. So what can we do to invest in them to where when that next opportunity comes, they're ready for that? And we've done our job to prepare them. So I feel like, even though doors might close, future doors will open. And we've had a lot of success stories here at our agency where folks have moved from various departments where we've never have guessed in a million years that this one person would have wanted to move to this department, but people do. And so sometimes looking within first, it helps to move that forward. So what we've done, we've done this through our strategic planning goals and initiatives, but we have set a goal for ourselves to where when we do have a position that has opened up, we do look at it internally first. If we have internal candidates who are interested, we might post the position for 3 to 5 days internally, giving our team members a chance first. And if no one applies, then we open it up for the general public to apply. So I do feel like that goes a long way with team members. And I feel like it gives them an opportunity to feel like, again, this could be a long-term home for them, knowing that they have opportunities to advance if they wish to go that route. And then the other layer to think about when it comes to building that culture of teamwork and making that your team being your cornerstone is definitely encourage decision making. And I know that it's sometimes challenging because oftentimes whether a decision was made by us, we are ultimately responsible for the decisions of the agency. So a lot of times we're hesitant to let that go. But to me, I guess I took that risk, and I think it has paid off plenty, and it really has been good. And so to me, I always kind of have told folks, they'll come with ideas or there's a decision that they're maybe struggling with that I'm trying to coach them through. And a lot of times I'll tell them, hey, as long as it doesn't burn down the building, try it. Make a decision based on what you feel is the right call. And if it isn't right, then we'll work to make it right. But don't worry about always, looking over your shoulder or having to come to me to make a decision. Make a decision. You're put in this position because we trust you and we feel like your judgment is good, use that. And if it's not, we will coach you on that. So I feel there are some decisions that we probably can let go of more and let our team members make those decisions. And then over time, that starts to build their comfort, that starts to build their trust. And then you start to have this team that says, yes, we are building something together and moving the agency forward. I do feel like one strategy that you can do that will help in giving that the ability of team members to make those independent decisions is just set up the guardrails, giving them, as I put there, don't burn down the building. But, you can give actually more practical guardrails of like, stay within this budget, or, serve this number of team members, or make sure we're operating from this time to this time. I mean, you can give them those guardrails and say, make those decisions within those guardrails. So I think as a leader of the agency, those are important things to think about, is what guardrails do you want to give team members? Some team members, you might give more narrow guardrails, some you might give bigger guardrails. But I think it's important to give them that ability to move down that lane, knowing that, they can make those decisions. And then over time, that just starts to build that teamwork to where they can keep going forward, and not everything is relying on your involvement. And I do feel the team members, oftentimes they end up making good decisions. Maybe it's not the same decisions we would have made or the same process we would have used, but it still gets us to that finish line. And so know that most of the time it works out that way. By doing that, team members will feel ownership of their position, and will feel like, they can then hopefully encourage their staff that are under them to do the same. And then, as I mentioned, if things don't go as planned, or there's a misstep somewhere, then you can, that's our role as leaders, is we can coach them, walk through to say, well, what should we have done differently? And then when that next time comes, that next opportunity, then they'll have more knowledge to where they'll know what to do, or how to do things differently in that next situation. And then lastly, I feel, which is, all of these layers are important, but this one I feel is really important, is finding a way to celebrate. And it doesn't mean that you yourself have to be the champion cheerleader of your agency. I think it is a big part of our role as leaders, but definitely have that environment. I think that is something that I think is important to having that teamwork, and finding opportunities to celebrate all types of victories, small, big, things that might be like, yeah, we've always done it this way, while saying, no, well, we shouldn't take those things for granted. And so I think celebrating those moments are very important. I think also making sure that folks are aware of the agency-wide goals that you're setting for the agency, or helping to set, is celebrate them. Find moments to say, yes, we set this target to be here by this date. We've gotten there. So let's celebrate that. Let's take a moment and celebrate that. And celebrations can be in a lot of different ways. So you don't have to do a big old parade down Main Street, but you can do things that definitely make sure that people are aware that you have noticed their achievements, you've noticed the department's achievements, the team, whatever that you're celebrating, and that goes a long way. And then, and kind of going along that, just simple things too: notes, emails, text messages, card. Those are things that can be done really easily. And, you just start to get yourself in that habit. And I know, those are things that I really try to focus on when I started in this position, is just making sure that people are aware that you see them, even though you might not physically see them. You see the good work that they are doing, and you're not taking that for granted. You're not saying, well, it's always been like this, so that's always going to stay this way. That's not always the case. So a couple of examples that we do on our end: we do an annual celebration of employees, where this is the one time in the year we all get together. So again, 260 team members. We come together for a full day. We do shut down operations of our locations, except our shelter. We do operate a domestic violence and homeless shelter. But we come together and celebrate all different things: safety records, years of service, employee of the year. We do find ways to celebrate our achievements and making sure that our team is feeling that love throughout the agency. We did establish early on in my tenure, we started actually before I started, but we kind of tweaked it a little bit, but we do these things called core values, where we have 5 core values at our agency, and there's like a nomination process, really short. I mean, 2 or 3 sentences people put together, but it's a way to nominate and highlight their fellow team members within their department, outside of their department, it doesn't matter. And we go around, and if someone is awarded a core value, we go and celebrate them, and then give them a lot of praise for being recognized for whatever that they had done. And then lastly, which I wish, taking myself that we had done this earlier, but we started this thing called Legacy Leaders, where we've taken our top 4 team members who have been with us the longest, kind of thinking about like Mount Rushmore, and taking the top 4 and really just finding ways throughout the year of just recognizing them, celebrating them. They have that title, Legacy Leaders. When their time comes and they retire, then the next person up will be there. So now you'll have a new member of our Legacy Leaders. But it's just a good way, again, another way of celebrating years of service, people that have given, a lifelong career of service. So those are things that we have done at our agency as well. So we do try to find all these new different things to keep that celebration going, keeping this team model and being a centerpiece of who we are at our agency. And so then in summary, things that just to keep in mind, just reinforce teamwork by highlighting examples. If there's something that in your mind looks like what teamwork should be, then bring a big spotlight to that and make sure that all team members are seeing that this is what you want to see in your agency. And folks do want to gravitate towards that positive reinforcement. And so if they're saying that this is what you are wanting to see, then their actions are going to start to model that. Be intentional with your time and effort, right? That is hard. I mean, our plate is full and there's a lot of things there, but we have to be intentional and find ways to incorporate these things into our busy schedule. You're never going to get to the mountaintop. I feel like when it comes to teamwork, it's always kind of a moving target, and that's okay. And so that's where, again, like you want to try things and you want to keep hearing ideas and moving that needle in the direction of trying to achieve ultimate teamwork and having your team being the focal point of your agency when it comes to being able to advance as an organization. And then lastly, just find opportunities to give decisions to your team. So, it can just be the smallest of things. I mean, it might be small to you in the gravity of everything else you're dealing with, but to turn those things over and say, what do you guys think? What do you think we should do? And knowing that you can kind of live with whatever decision that comes forward, then sometimes team members feel like, yes, they value, this person values my opinions, my ideas, and that definitely resonates with them and really helps to build that trust between you and that team or that individual moving forward. So sometimes it's okay. It's okay to let go or give them options. Say, hey, I have these 3 options. What do you think we should do? And then whatever they choose, and say, all right, I can live with that. Let's move forward. So that concludes my presentation. I think it does. I don't think I got another slide left. Nope. So I'd be happy to answer any questions. Definitely would love feedback. If there's things that you feel are things for all of us to be thinking of when it comes to teamwork, then I'm all for that. So any questions?
Not really a question, but just wanted to say I appreciate your ideas because I'm always trying to focus on building people up and leadership, and you gave me some great ideas. I've been taking notes, and I'll probably be calling you to steal or borrow some and get some more details. So thank you.
Oh, no, thank you, Michelle. And actually, being a neighbor of ours, we need to get together and continue to build those bridges between our agency.
For sure.
Can I
Thank you.
just follow Michelle
Mhm.
on that? This is Tashira, sorry. I appreciate the presentation for sure, because it's very validating. Even though I'm out of the few months of being in the CEO, there's this part where you're always wanting to please, like your board members. And so you forget about the ideas or trusting your gut or trusting your instinct and, in terms of direction. And so thank you for this presentation today. One of the questions that I do have in terms of the teamwork, as you're watching and you're learning your team and you're building and, building up, I guess, how did you go about finding out from the staffing what their idea of team is? And so, sometimes you can be, for example, a part of a team as an employee, right? You can be a part of a team, but you might not be, from a perspective, you might not be actually acting like a team member. And so how did you go about finding out from your team, hey, what's your kind of definition or idea of what team and teamwork is?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. And we, I would say really kind of almost through a roundabout way, when I became the executive director, I remember really trying to emphasize with our senior team, our department directors, and then even talking with our team, always having this focus of it's all about the team and not the individual. And so sometimes, we had some individual recognitions we would do in the past, and we did carry some of those on, but a lot of times it's always about, if something went well, it was because of the team. It wasn't because of this one director, or it wasn't because of me, or it definitely was this team. And so I think over time, it was just this message and a song that we just had to continue to sing, where folks started to go, okay, I get it. It is about the team. And so even today, folks, when they are trying to recognize and praise others, it's oftentimes just not one person. They'll throw out 9 or 10 different names or a whole department. So I think we did it that way through just kind of this ongoing messaging of it's always about the team, the team, the team. And so we've done it that way. We have, as part of one of our core values, is teamwork. So we've done presentations throughout our agency when it comes to kind of what teamwork looks like. But it is one of those things where everyone has a slightly different viewpoint of it, or feels like, you talk about this, but I'm not seeing it. So we strive to bring those, I guess, concerns or challenges out and try to talk about them and have, I guess, build our understanding on what people are seeing on their end. And then in a sense, working with them on that particular situation to say, well, how do we get there? And so we've done, one thing that comes to mind is we brought in I don't know her exact title, but she was kind of like a behavioral specialist. She was good at moderating kind of these peaceful interactions. And so when there was conflict between team members or groups of teams, we've brought this person in before, and she'll sit down and, I'm not involved. She doesn't share out what happens, and she kind of works through those details with those individuals. And so we've kind of approached it a lot of different ways, to where we just really try to understand where that person's coming from, so we can try to, I guess, know what next steps we need to take when it comes to those situations.
Okay, great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So I'd also like to echo the thanks. Super insightful, and thank you so much, Jeff, for sharing all this stuff. I think I specifically needed to hear. Don't feel pressured to give an answer on the spot. So thank you for that permission slip.
Yes.
So Cynthia and I are also really excited about the World Cup idea. Can you give a little bit more insight into that, or is there somewhere I can see more about that?
So, yeah, so what we did is, I don't know, well, there's like 32 teams in the World Cup. So we broke up our agency, so 260 employees. We broke them up into groups of like 16, and then we just randomly we did this drawing ceremony where each team got 2 countries. And so countries that one they'd never heard of, or 2, they're like, why are we going to be rooting for them? But we like, no, there's you got to find reasons why and try to understand their culture. So it's also good for kind of cultural diversity as well, of understanding kind of these other parts of the world. And so we did it that way. So like, for instance, like one team might have England and Ghana. And so now they're rooting for them. And all of a sudden, we encourage like, not to watch the World Cup while they're working, not that, but if you want to blast out via email a final score or a celebrating victory or a picture, do it. Have fun with it. Decorate your office in the colors of your country. And so it was really interesting. And some teams got more involved than others, but over time, the snowball just got bigger and bigger. And so towards the very end, then there was some friendly banter of who was going to end up winning. So it was good. So we gave out awards based on what team actually won the World Cup, but then also the Spirit Award. And so what team had the most spirit for their countries that they were rooting for. And people did potlucks, people dressed up. I mean, it really was awesome. And so we just, again, set the guardrails and let team members go from there. So I do feel like it could work with, the Olympics. It could work with, sporting events, other sporting events besides the World Cup. The nice thing about the World Cup, it happens every 4 years. So it's not one of these things where people are going to get burnt out by it. And it's like, all right, it happens every 4 years. Let's get excited for it.
Very cool. Thanks.
No, you're welcome. Yeah, and definitely, that's good. Johnny, you mentioned it. Don't feel pressure to give answers. I have given so many answers on the spot, and then driving home, I'm like, why? I mean, that wasn't the right answer. So then you feel compelled to stick with that answer because you gave it. And so, yes, definitely give yourself some distance before giving an answer.
Well, what's funny about that is I've noticed that when I don't give an immediate answer, some of my staff just hate that because in their mind, everything is urgent. And I keep trying to explain that, and in a nice way, like this is an urgent thing to you. And I understand that. But as far as like a corporate like priority right this minute, it is not really an urgent thing for me to answer right now. And so it's just hard to balance it without kind of dismissing them, but not always going into panic mode because they always want an answer that minute. And it's never really an answer they need that minute. So it's very, very interesting balance. And people have just asked me, well, don't you ever know the answer? And I'm like, usually I honestly don't know it in 5 seconds. So I like to research and balance. And so it's interesting that people question your authority and your knowledge when you do that approach, but it's better for me too. So that was an interesting comment. So thank you for that too.
Oh, no, you're welcome. Yeah. No, it's stuff that I still need to remember on a daily basis. Well, thank you, everyone. And as I mentioned earlier, this was good for me to go through this as well. Preparing for it made me think like, am I doing enough? Am I staying focused on that moving target when it comes to having that environment of teamwork and really emphasizing it and nurturing it? So this was good. So I'm very grateful that I was asked to be part of this. Again, I still feel like, I'm still new. And so maybe I should be on the receiving end, but it's such something, right, that we should always be learning. And whether you're 1 year in or 20 years in, there's always something to learn and to learn from. So I appreciate you being part of the call today, and my very best to you. And You're not on an island, you know, Kings County is not that far away. And so if there's ever an opportunity for us to connect, I'm a call away, an email away, shoot, even a visit away. So just let me know. And it's always good to have those other leaders that you can tap into and just say, hey, kind of give me your thoughts or perspective. So don't hesitate.
Yeah, hey, Jeff, thank you so much for speaking to the group on these items. I would swear in my mind that I prepped all of this for you, because this is one of the avenues of support that Cal Kappa really enjoys providing to our agencies is help with teaming. So a lot of the tools that Jeff was citing in his presentation are things that some of you have already taken advantage of because I've talked to you, and others are interested in terms of supporting your teams with things like Gallup Strengths Finder and Q12 for employee engagement and that kind of stuff. Also, 5 behaviors of cohesive teams, which Jeff kind of nailed down a couple of important items from that, including allowing people to weigh into decisions before they'll buy into those decisions. So he's illustrated all of those wonderful points. So thank you, Jeff. Fantastic. This recording will go up with our others in this series. And I think David Knight, do you have any? I see that you're on the call. Sometimes you've got some insight on these sessions.
No, I don't know if you guys can hear me, but
yes, sir.
I just appreciate everybody being here, and I just kind of want to open it up if there's any other conversations you guys want to have, with the roundtable as far as being new folks. That's it. So Jeff, I really appreciate it. It was great. I was taking a lot of notes myself. So.
Oh, good. Well, thank you, David.
Great. Fantastic. Well, I dropped a feedback survey in the chat. I'll also include that link in the recording or in the email that I send out with the recording and the presentation. So you'll have an opportunity to keep this for your record. Okay. And the next session will be in May. Look out for an invitation to that. Our next host will be Brenda Callahan Johnson, another board member, and we'll look forward to our presentation. So thanks again, Jeff, and everybody take care. We'll see you next time.
Thank you.